Hello, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking our host, Prime Minister Modi, for the warm welcome he has extended to our team, to the entire delegation. As many of you know, the Prime Minister and I have met many times prior to this visit. From the COP21 Environmental Conference in Paris to several G20 meetings to the Nuclear Security Summit in Washington, and just a few weeks ago on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. After all, we share not only a rich history, but a set of values that encourages a natural friendship between our two countries. Prime Minister Modi, it is such a pleasure and a privilege to finally be with you here in India, and I look forward to continued partnership for the years to come. I'm glad to say that we just wrapped up a productive meetings during which we discussed issues of mutual interest in the future of the Canada-India partnership. As you saw from the Prime Minister's words, many topics were on the agenda this morning, and instead of repeating all of them, I'd like to focus on three specific areas. First, we talked about how we can work together to create growth in a way that benefits Indians and Canadians alike. L'Inde est l'une des économies qui connaît la croissance la plus rapide dans le monde. Le pays a su consolider sa position comme puissance économique et chef de file mondial dans les domaines de l'innovation et de la technologie, pour en nommer quelques-uns. Nous avons la chance d'approfondir notre partenariat et de réaliser le potentiel inexploité de nos liens commerciaux tout en renforçant l'autonomisation des femmes. Plus tôt cette semaine, nous avons fait un grand pas dans la bonne direction lorsque j'ai annoncé $1 milliard d'investissements entre le Canada et l'Inde qui mèneront à la création de presque 6 000 bons emplois pour les Canadiens. Earlier this week, we took a major step in strengthening our economic relationship when I announced $1 billion in two-way investments between Canada and India, which will create 5,800 good middle-class jobs back home in Canada. 5,800 good middle-class jobs back home in Canada. Now, this is great news for both Canadians and Indians. Whether it's a Canadian firm exporting to India or India's global companies creating jobs for Canadians, we all win. This is a vote of confidence from the Indian business community in the future of the Canada-India partnership. As Canada looks to diversify its own economy and looks for and a trusted friend for commercial cooperation. To this effect, Prime Minister Modi and I welcomed the conclusion of and progress on cooperation agreements in areas such as civil nuclear science and technology, information technology, automotive sector cooperation, intellectual property, smart cities, and customs enforcement. That said, a renewed economic partnership must create jobs and help families get ahead. As governments, we have the responsibility to set the right parameters for economic relationships to flourish in a way that benefits everyone, not just the wealthiest few. I know that Prime Minister Modi and I are united in that ambition. Ensuite, nous avons discuté de notre engagement à lutter contre les changements climatiques. Le Premier ministre et moi savons que l'économie et l'environnement doivent aller de pair. Nous avons parlé de l'importance d'accélérer la transition mondiale vers des sources d'énergie abordables, fiables et durables. Nous avons convenu de collaborer à des travaux de recherche et de développement. Nous avons aussi décidé d'étendre la portée du dialogue ministériel Canada-Inde en matière d'énergie à tous les secteurs énergétiques qui pourraient faciliter l'accès à de l'énergie propre en vue de la 4e réunion qui aura lieu cet automne au Canada. Soyons clairs, les changements climatiques représentent le plus grand défi de notre époque. Le Canada et l'Inde ne sont pas seulement en position d'agir, on peut mener la charge sur la scène internationale. Nous restons fermement résolus à mettre en œuvre l'accord de Paris dans son intégralité pour que nos enfants et nos petits-enfants puissent profiter de tout ce que notre monde aura à leur offrir, et ce, pendant des générations. Lastly, we discussed deepening and strengthening people-to-people ties. Canada is home to more than 1.3 million people of Indian descent. India and Canada are united not only by their common ambition to create more opportunities for people to get ahead, but by a shared set of values. Values like respect for the democratic tradition, pluralism, and diversity. But while our history is something we can all be proud of, I am most inspired by the prospect of our shared future. The youths of Canada and India are growing closer every day, and that gives me great hope in what we will be able to achieve in the years to come. Last year, about 125,000 Indian students chose to pursue their studies in Canada, making India the second largest source of international students for Canada's universities, colleges, and schools, and we expect this record number to keep growing in 2018. Ce n'est là qu'une des façons dont le Canada et l'Inde se rapprochent de plus en plus à chaque jour. Ces étudiants deviennent rapidement des ambassadeurs de la relation qui unit le Canada et l'Inde, puisqu'ils nouent des liens durables entre nos pays. Après cette visite d'une semaine, je peux dire avec certitude que mon gouvernement est plus déterminé que jamais à élargir et approfondir les liens entre le Canada et l'Inde. Et les 11 visites que nos ministres ont effectuées durant les 2 dernières années en témoignent. So I am pleased with the important progress we've made on issues of mutual interest during our meetings. And once again, I want to thank our host, my colleague, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, for his hospitality, and of course, thank you all again for joining us today. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Excellency. This concludes the press event. Thank you all for joining.
The key takeaways from that joint conference being conducted by the Prime Ministers of Canada and India, Justin Trudeau and Narendra Modi, spelling out the key takeaways from the meeting that was held between the two Prime Ministers just while before that conference began, talking about how there are several values that are shared by both India and Canada. In fact, Justin Trudeau calling that meeting with his Indian counterpart absolutely productive. Let's also remind you that the kind of issues that have been coming up between the two countries, a lot of tension has also been rife over the Khalistan issue, for example, and there's been a lot of speculation about the relations between the two countries being impacted as a result of the same. But at the same time, this conference spelling out the key takeaways and the key achievements really as a result of the deliberations between the Prime Ministers of India and Canada. Remember, this is also a crucial visit by the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. This is an India visit which has been looked forward to for multiple reasons. Justin Trudeau also talking about how various fields and areas that the two countries find common ground on, and promising to take the ties further. This, of course, is a meeting and a visit which bolsters ties between the two countries. India and Canada inking key agreements, discussions on mutual growth being the key focus. The Canadian Prime Minister and the Indian Prime Minister's meeting ended just a short while back, post which this joint conference that was addressed by the two leaders. India and Canada share common cultural values is one of the key takeaways from that joint address that was made by the two leaders that ended just a few moments ago. Discussion on mutual growth being the key focus. In fact, the Prime Minister of Canada also calling that meeting absolutely productive. India as a trusted friend of Canada is one of the other major highlights of that address that was made by the Canadian leader. issues of mutual interest that were discussed in the meeting, ranging from various sectors. Canadian Prime Minister's meeting with his Indian counterpart, touching upon various issues. We're getting in further details from our senior correspondent Ramesh Ramachandran in just a bit, who will be breaking down for us the meeting takeaways. We of course have heard from the two leaders talking about how this is a visit and a meeting that has bolstered ties between the two countries. But if we do have Ramesh now, let me also quickly get in a sense from him. Ramesh, in terms of the issues that were discussed, what according to you have been the key takeaways from that meeting? We've of course heard from the two leaders. They've spelled out the key focus areas. But in terms of the finer details of, for example, the issue of Afghanistan, also the issue of terrorism, what have been the key takeaways on those fronts?
This morning we saw Prime Minister Modi give a bear hug to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and that was an indication of how both sides want to put their relations on an even keel going forward, and that manifested itself in their bilateral talks later in the day. And there were no really surprises there, because both sides discussed all issues of bilateral, regional and global importance, including, as you mentioned, regional issues. Just to take you through the key outcomes or the takeaways from their talks, Prime Minister Modi spoke about how India is consistently arguing against those who threaten any nation's territorial integrity. He says terrorism threatens pluralistic societies, including India and Canada, and therefore it is incumbent upon them to address each other's concerns on this front. To put this into context, Molly, India and Canada ties have been overshadowed by Trudeau's reluctance, as it were, to call out Sikh radicalism in Canada, and he's only spoken about a united India, but he has not gone beyond that to address India's specific concerns about the so-called Khalistani movement in Canada. That's an issue which still remains very much on the table, but Prime Minister Modi has indicated that they've gone beyond that for the moment, and he went on to say that those who challenge especially religious extremism should be addressed going forward. As far as India is concerned, he also spoke about energy security. Remember, Canada is a partner of India in civil nuclear energy cooperation. Canada supplies uranium supplies to India in the last 3 odd years, especially after India became a member, signed the agreement with the US and the NSG. Also on the regional issues, North Korea and the Maldives, both sides saying that they are on the same page as far as these issues are concerned. And Trudeau, for his part, spoke about people-to-people ties, trade, investments, especially in terms of education. Remember, almost 1.2 lakh Indian students are studying in Canada, and that's a key objective as far as Canada is concerned, to attract more students and more investments from India into Canada.
Absolutely. Very interestingly, among the several takeaways there, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also talking about how the two countries share similar thoughts on the issue of Maldives as well.
Indeed, as you mentioned correctly, Molly, that all issues of bilateral, regional and global issues were very much on the table, including, as you mentioned, the Maldives. Remember, the Maldives has been in the throes of a crisis for some time now, and there's no immediate resolution in sight. But that said, yesterday the Election Commission there has called for elections, presidential elections in September this year, and the opposition is still to react to that decision. But on the face of it, India says it is seized of the matter in the Maldives, and it expects countries, including Canada, to support India's position insofar as the Maldives is concerned.
We're going to leave it there for the moment, Ramesh, but of course we'll keep continuing to unravel the key takeaways from that meeting that was held between the two leaders. Prime Ministers Justin Trudeau and Narendra Modi met just a short while back, and post that addressed that joint briefing.